Ricky Nelson is one of America's most comprehensive entertainment icons, a musician and actor whose career spanned from 1949 to 1985. He began his career at the age of 8, starring alongside his family in a series of popular radio and television shows. The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. Ricky Nelson became one of the first teen idols of the rock and roll era, scoring 54 chart hits, Billboard Hot 100, and was the first to have a song reach #1 on the newly formed Hot 100 chart with the hit Poor Little Fool in 1958. His fame was not limited to music, but also extended to cinema with his Golden Globe-nominated role in the classic Western film Rio Bravo, 1959. His musical legacy was so brilliant that he was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame on January 21, 1987. However, a sudden and fateful tragedy struck on New Year's Eve 1985 when the Douglas DC-3 aircraft he was traveling on caught fire in the passenger compartment and was forced to make an emergency landing in DeKalb, Texas, taking the life of the talented artist at the age of 45. This heartbreaking event abruptly ended the artistic journey of a legend. What makes the truth behind this accident so bitter, beyond the explanation of a mere mechanical failure? Initially, it was thought that he had really died from a faulty heating system, and the plane had suffered multiple mechanical failures, or even from the rumors of drug use in the cabin. Or was there something deeper hidden in the glamorous but also dark life of a star, related to financial pressure, the fight to restore his image, and the price of an expensive lifestyle? Let's find out the exact truth about this fateful event, peeling back each layer of tragedy to better understand the talented but ill-fated artist who was defeated not by fate, but by human irresponsibility. Eric Hilliard Nelson was born on May 8, 1940 in Teaneck, New Jersey. He was the second son of the famous entertainment couple Ozzie and Harriet Nelson. Nelson's paternal grandfather was of Swedish descent. While his father, Ozzie, was busy touring with the Nelson Band, his mother, Harriet, a singer, stayed in Englewood, New Jersey, to care for him and his older brother, David Nelson. Ricky Nelson spent his early childhood in Tenafly, New Jersey, before moving to Los Angeles in 1942. Ricky was described as a small and insecure child who suffered from severe asthma. He was also described by Red Skelton's producer, John Guedel, as a strange kid, likable, shy, introverted, mysterious, and enigmatic. When Red Skelton was drafted into the Army in 1944, Guedel created a radio sitcom, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, for Ricky's parents. Initially, the roles of the Nelson brothers were played by professional child actors, but on February 20, 1949, David, age 12, and Ricky, age 8, officially joined the show. In 1952, the Nelson family experimented with television with the motion picture. Here Come the Nelsons. The film was a success, and on October 3, 1952, The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet debuted on television, becoming one of the longest-running sitcoms in television history, airing until September 3, 1966. Academically, Nelson attended Gardner Street Public School, Bancroft Junior High, and graduated from Hollywood High School between 1954 and 1958 with a B average. Although an active athlete, playing rugby and representing the school in inter-school tennis matches, he once shared with Los Angeles Weekly that he hated school because it smelled of pencils and he had to get up early to go to class. By the time he was 18, he was in the 93% income tax bracket and saw no need to go to college, although his father, Ozzie, was a Rutgers alumnus and was keen for his son to get a higher education. His income was skillfully managed by his parents, transferred into trust funds. He had a personal fortune of $500,000 by the age of 16, equivalent to $580,000 in 2024. Ricky Nelson's prolific entertainment career spanned two main areas: television, film, and music. Nelson began his musical career in 1957. As a teenager, he played the clarinet and drums, learned basic guitar chords, and often imitated his favorite rockabilly artists, especially Carl Perkins. He was heavily influenced by Perkins and tried to emulate the sound and melody of the guitar break in his hit Blue Suede Shoes. At age 16, to impress his girlfriend, an Elvis fan, Nelson sought to record. With the help of his father, he signed a one-record contract with Verve Records, a jazz label looking for a young celebrity who could sing. In March 1957, he recorded I'm Walkin' and A Teenager's Romance. Before the single was released, he made his rock and roll television debut on April 10, 1957, singing and playing drums on I'm Walkin', on an episode of Ozzie and Harriet. The single was a huge success, with I'm Walkin' reaching number 4 and the B-side, A Teenager's Romance, reaching number 2 on the charts. Billboard. In the summer of 1957, Ozzie Nelson withdrew his son from Verve due to a royalty dispute and signed a lucrative 5-year contract with Imperial Records, giving Ricky the right to approve song selection and cover artwork. His first single with Imperial, Bebop Baby, sold over 1 million copies and peaked at number 3. His first album, Ricky, released in October 1957, reached number 1 later that year. In 1958, Nelson released Sharon Shealy's recording of Poor Little Fool for his second album. Although Nelson initially opposed the single's release, when it was released, he exercised his contractual right to veto the cover art. On August 4, 1958, Poor Little Fool became the first number 1 single on the newly formed Hot 100 chart. Billboard and sold over 2 million copies. Nelson was the first teen idol to use television to promote his hits. Between 1957 and 1962, Nelson had 30 top 40 hits, more than any other artist except Elvis Presley and Pat Boone. Although he favored rockabilly and upbeat rock songs like Believe What You Say and It's Late, his smooth, composed voice also brought him great success with ballads such as Travelin' Man and Lonesome Town. He affirmed his belief in the genre, declaring, "Anyone who criticizes rock and roll either doesn't understand it, is prejudiced against it, or is just plain old-fashioned." Alongside his music career, Nelson has also built an acting career. After making his film debut in Here Come the Nelsons 1952 and a small role in The Story of Three Loves 1953, Nelson had the biggest break in his film career. Director Howard Hawks cast him as gunslinger Colorado Ryan in the classic Western. Rio Bravo, 1959, co-starring John Wayne and Dean Martin. Hawks credited Nelson's role as a large part of the film's box office success. For his performance, Nelson received a Golden Globe nomination for Most Promising Newcomer. He continued to star alongside Jack Lemmon in The Wackiest Ship in the Army, 1960. In 1965, he starred in the romantic comedy Love and Kisses, written and directed by his father, Ozzie Nelson. In the following years, Nelson continued to appear in guest roles on many television shows, including the role of Jesse James in War, The Streets of San Francisco, McCloud, Petrocelli, and The Love Boat. In his 20s, Nelson began to move away from the pop music of his youth to country rock, becoming a pioneer of the genre and one of the earliest influences on the California sound. After signing a 20-year contract with Decca Records in 1963, his career stalled due to the rise of Beatlemania and the British wave. However, he resurrected his career in 1969 when he formed the Stone Canyon Band. This comeback was cemented by the album in concert at the Troubadour, 1969, and culminated in the surprise 1972 hit, Garden Party. Nelson wrote the song himself out of frustration after a Richard Nader Oldies concert at Madison Square Garden, where the audience booed him for performing new songs instead of just singing old hits. The song reached number 6 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the Adult Contemporary chart and certified gold. Garden Party is a powerful statement of artistic integrity, carrying the message, "You can't please everyone, so you have to please yourself." Ricky Nelson's personal life, despite his perfect television appearance, was riddled with deep contradictions that foreshadowed later personal tragedy. He had several romantic relationships as a teenager, including Diana Osborne E., who pushed him to record his first record, and Lori Collins, a country singer with whom he co-wrote the song My Gal. In 1961, Nelson began dating Kristen Harmon, daughter of football player Tom Harmon and actress Elise Knox. The Nelson and Harmon families had been longtime friends, and the marriage between these two Hollywood royals was seen as an ideal match. They married on April 20, 1963. The marriage was described by Nelson as a shotgun wedding because Chris was pregnant. Nelson, a non-practicing Protestant, was required to take Catholic catechism classes at the request of his bride's parents and signed a pledge to raise their children in the Catholic faith. Chris Nelson later joined the family television show as a regular cast member in 1963. They have 4 children: actress Tracy Christine Nelson, twins and musicians Gunnar Eric Nelson and Matthew Gray Nelson, and Sam Hilliard Nelson. Notably, twins Gunnar and Matthew Nelson inherited their father's musical talent and formed the band Nelson. Despite the appearance of a perfect family, the marriage began to deteriorate after the birth of their youngest child in 1975. Tensions grew due to differences in lifestyle and priorities. Chris wanted Rick to give up music, spend more time with his family, and focus on acting. However, the family maintained an extremely lavish lifestyle, and Chris's extravagant spending habits left Rick with no choice but to constantly tour to make money. The stagnant career created an unpleasant atmosphere at home. Chris became an alcoholic and frequently left the children in the care of a nanny. Chris finally filed for divorce in October 1977. After years of public and contentious litigation, they divorced in December 1982. The divorce took a heavy financial toll on Nelson, with lawyers and accountants taking more than $1 million. After their divorce, in 1980, Nelson met Helen Blair, a part-time model and exotic animal trainer in Las Vegas. She became his tour companion and lived with him from 1982. Nelson considered marrying Blair, but ultimately declined. Ironically, after overcoming the pressures of being a teen idol, the fierce competition of the British wave, and the financial disaster of a costly divorce, Ricky Nelson's ultimate tragedy came not from his career or personal life, but from a technical error and cold irresponsibility. On New Year's Eve, December 31st, 1985, Ricky Nelson, his band, and Helen Blair were flying from Guntersville, Alabama, to Dallas, Texas, for a New Year's Eve concert. His plane, a World War II-era Douglas DC-3, caught fire in the passenger cabin. The plane was forced to make an emergency landing in a field in DeKalb, Texas. According to initial reports, the cause of the fire was determined to be a faulty heating system in the tail of the plane. While the 2 pilots survived by escaping through the cockpit windows, 7 passengers, including Nelson and Helen Blair, died after being unable to escape the smoke-filled cabin. In the immediate aftermath of the disaster, rumors and conspiracy theories began to circulate, sowing confusion about the true cause. Some blamed poor maintenance. Most worryingly, some tabloids spread the dark tale that the fire was caused by drug use in the cabin, based on rumors of paraphernalia found at the scene. The rumor unfairly tarnished Nelson's image. However, toxicology reports later confirmed that no drugs or alcohol were found in Nelson's system. Yet the cloud of doubt lingered over the incident for decades, leaving his family and fans heartbroken. The National Transportation Safety Board eventually determined the fire originated in the cabin, likely due to a malfunctioning heater, but they were unable to pinpoint the exact source of the fire. In the years that followed, aviation historians, forensic analysts, and journalists continued to investigate, and breakthroughs revealed a much clearer and more disturbing picture. Previously overlooked technical records, combined with interviews with aircraft mechanics and surviving pilots, revealed that the Douglas DC-3 had been poorly maintained and operated under questionable safety conditions. The key finding: despite knowing about recurring problems with the heater, located just below the cabin floor near flammable materials, the aircraft operators failed to adequately address them. More damningly, the heater had been patched in a way that did not comply with aviation safety standards. This manufacturing defect turned the heater into a time bomb. When it failed in flight, it created a spark that started a fire that quickly engulfed the passenger compartment in smoke and toxic fumes. Nelson and the other passengers almost certainly died of smoke inhalation before the plane landed. The pilots were able to escape because they were in the cockpit, but for those in the cabin, the lack of fire extinguishers and fireproof insulation meant they had no chance. The most chilling revelation was that the fire was entirely preventable. Ricky Nelson lost his life not because of an accident, but because of human negligence and poor system oversight. This fact deepened the public grief and outrage. It showed that even a famous icon can be vulnerable when those responsible for ensuring their safety fail. The parents of Helen Blair, who died with Nelson and whose name was not even mentioned at his funeral, filed a $2 million wrongful death lawsuit against Nelson's estate, eventually receiving a small settlement. Ricky Nelson, a man who spent his professional life in the spotlight, died as a result of his carelessness in maintaining an old aircraft. His death became a grim cautionary tale, emphasizing that the fault was not fate or personal error, but an avoidable disaster caused by a disregard for safety regulations. The tragedy of Ricky Nelson is a clear lens that reflects the contrast between the glamorous appearance of fame and the invisible burdens that artists must bear. He has been loved by the public since he was a child actor in The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet, a show that cast him and his family as the American ideal. That image brought him huge success as a teen idol, but it was also a cage. Nelson felt the pressure to change in order to survive. He officially changed his name from Ricky Nelson to Rick Nelson on his 21st birthday, May 8, 1961, an attempt to shed his childhood nickname and teen idol image. The move to country rock in the mid-1960s was a deliberate artistic move, despite initial public backlash and chart decline following the British wave. The success of 1972's Garden Party marked the culmination of this struggle. The song was not just a hit, but also an artistic statement against the pressure to forever recreate old hits. It was an attempt by an artist to be appreciated for his maturity and innovation, not just for the rockabilly songs he was making at the age of 17. The greatest irony of Nelson's adult life was his intense financial struggles. Despite being wealthy from an early age, his lavish lifestyle and protracted divorce forced him into a life of constant touring, a career his ex-wife wanted him to give up. This created a vicious cycle. Financial pressure forced him to continue performing and innovating, but innovation was rejected by the same audience demanding oldies, like the Madison Square Garden event. This struggle, combined with the huge divorce costs, over $1 million, forced him to fly on an old and unsafe plane for one last concert. Nelson's final tragic event, his death by systematic negligence, cemented his legacy not only as a musical star, but also as a symbol of fragility. After the incident, his musical legacy was more widely recognized. He was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1987. In 1996, he was ranked 49th on the list of the 50 greatest TV stars of all time by TV Guide. Rolling Stone ranked him 91st on its list of the 100 greatest artists of all time in 2004. In 2005, on the 20th anniversary of his death, PBS aired the documentary Ricky Nelson Sings, features interviews with his children, James Burton and Chris Christopherson. His twin sons, Gunnar and Matthew Nelson, went on to have success with the band Nelson, continuing the family's musical legacy. Nelson's death left a profound wake-up call. It forced the public to see that behind the idol's image was a man who faced financial pressure and artistic innovation, and ultimately became a victim of irresponsibility in the transportation industry. The greatest thing about this tragedy is that the truth has been revealed, that he did not die from drugs or simple pilot error, but from a faulty heater, thereby helping to protect his honor from baseless rumors. Ricky Nelson's life was a journey from television prodigy to rock and roll pioneer, and then to country rock and roll founder. He was one of the first to bring rock music into millions of American homes through the set-top box. He fought valiantly to maintain his artistic integrity, trying to transform himself from Ricky to Rick, facing a public divorce and huge financial losses. Yet, that illustrious career and tenacious artistic struggle ended painfully and senselessly in an entirely avoidable air disaster. His death exposed a cruel truth. Even legends are not immune to the consequences of systematic negligence and negligence. What does the hidden truth about that DC-3's makeshift heater repair ask about our trust in the institutions responsible for ensuring safety and what we accept as truth when a star dies? Is society too willing to accept surface explanations like pilot error or drug rumors instead of digging deeper into the systemic lack of accountability that is a more invisible and deadly burden than any pressure of fame?